Here's our panel. I'll get going with that. S.Levy, who I think a lot of people here know, has spoken at many other conferences, wrote Hackers, had a long career at Newsweek, long career at Wired, and is most recently launched as editor-in-chief Back Channel, which is a tech channel on Medium. Then we have Marty M.Moe, who's the president of Vox Media, who also co-founded The Verge and what's that other one, Polygon. I'm not a gamer, I'm sorry. Also has an amazing background in Washington and AOL. And then R.MacDonald, who's currently head of media partnerships at Pinterest, but also has a great background in ad tech, DoubleClick, Google, that sort of thing. And S.Rosenbaum, also well known to the DLD audience, who was also, my favorite thing, was the entrepreneur at large for New York City. Are you still that?
I am not, and my mom loved that they called me large.
Anyway, also an author. He wrote a great book called Curation Nation, and also had, I think mostly on this stage, was known for Magnify.net, which then acquired Waywire and is now Waywire, CEO of many things. So you guys can get to know what's on their minds, and sorry about all you people over there. We'll just focus on you, and hopefully the cameras will do the rest. Let's do a quick description from each of you of what's your job about, and how does this topic intersect with what you're passionate about. And then we'll do one more quick round, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this.
So I work for an open platform called Medium, founded by Evan Williams. He founded Blogger, and then he co-founded Twitter. And so if you look at the trajectory, you can understand a little better what Medium is. It's a way that anyone could write. And you could use more than 140 characters. And we're building a network that will get you exposure there. And they also hire some professional journalists to either write for it and run publications for it. So I started a publication called Back Channel, which does like a small but high-quality amount of articles about technology.
Great. Marty?
Hi. I help to run Vox Media. We are a company that is building a new generation of brands for a generation of digitally consuming readers and viewers. And we have 7 brands across categories as diverse as sports, technology, gaming, food, lifestyle, fashion, and general news. We reach 160 million people worldwide, over 80 million people in the US. We're one of the fastest growing media companies in the world right now. And what we do is we blend great teams of digital native writers, editors, journalists, video producers, and we empower them with a very, very diverse and rich stack of publishing technology, distribution technology, and analytics to help them understand what drives audience growth and consumption. And we aggregate large-scale, great audience for brands to connect with great advertising products. And that's kind of the virtuous cycle of great content, great advertising leading to great experiences and more of those.
Okay, Rob?
R.MacDonald. I work for a discovery platform called Pinterest. And I work mostly with media partners to help them get the most of our platform. Our platform is very much about the future. It's about helping people find the things they love, their interests, their passions, and discover those things, and then save those things to their boards and their profiles, and then hopefully inspire them to go do those things. So it can be as simple as what I'm going to have for dinner to what I'm going to do this weekend or a trip I'm taking this summer. And the way we work with brands, and 2/3 of all the content in Pinterest is brand content, is to give them a place to be discovered in a very natural setting. So Pinterest delivers that in a way that's very, to us, native and natural. And if we can connect those interests from our audience with brands, we think there's a lot of value there for everyone.
Okay, Steve?
So I'm a video guy. I've been a video guy since high school and done 5 companies. And in this chapter of my career, I became convinced that the real interesting puzzle in video wasn't going to be making. In fact, that seems to be happening in massive quantity now, but discovery, and in particular discovery in high-quality, narrowcast niches. So Waywire was the merger of 2 companies, Magnify, which was a technology company and which powered enterprise video curation, and Waywire, which was Cory Booker's consumer-facing curation site. And what we've been able to do in about 8 months is launch 570 channels, of which 565 of them none of you are interested in. And that's what I'm most proud of. Because the narrowcast verticals, and in particular the human-curated channels, of which we now have 80 and are growing 5 or 6 a week, are the ones that are able to deliver to high-quality narrowcast audiences that literally make no sense unless you're passionate about something. And I'll just give you one example. In high school, I was a magician. And I love watching magic videos. I love watching great, famous magicians, but I also love watching little unknown magicians. And that world is a world that is special to me and a collection of, strangely, a lot of internet entrepreneurs. I'm not sure what the alignment is there. Tricks, perhaps. But I love being able to watch, in a community of people like me, videos. And so one of the things that I believe strongly in, and we're going to talk a good deal about, is this enormous pressure that all things, in order to be successful, have to be big. And so what we do is partner with people of passion. We bring them into our network as curators. We partner with them as independent contractors. And they either are super fans, passionistas, or experts. And they become the voice and the face of our channels. And it's a very exciting journey we're on.
Okay, one more little stage setting thing, and let's go back this way this time. Other than your own stuff, what is your media diet in the morning?
So here's the problem with that question for me. When I open any electronic...
I thought it was an easy question.
No, it's hard. No, because I'm going to answer it in a way that risks me sounding old. When I open any electronic device, the volume of things that come at me that are work-related, business, family, are so muddied together that I can't have a cup of coffee and let my brain settle. And there's a mindfulness piece to this. So for me, and I'm hopeful that I'll find other filters, it is some combination of the paper edition of the New York Times first, so that I can just have...
I hear some assent on that one.
And then rather quickly thereafter, Jason Hirschhorn at Media Redefined. And then email.
Okay.
But I try and do email third.
How many paper New York Times readers do we have here? Yeah. Yeah, quite a
Not
few
for much
still.
longer, I'm afraid.
All right. Okay.
Become a luxury.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Rob, what about you?
I'm a weekend New York Times reader, not during the
Okay.
week. So for me, it's The Skim, actually Medium, and the usual suspects, Twitter and Facebook.
Okay. Marty?
I read our websites
But you weren't
cover to cover every day. No. But Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all in paper. I'm a traditionalist that way. I still like the print editions. And then newsletters that I get via email from Capital Pro, Media Gazer's another one I keep tabs on.
newsletters I think are... How many people here have more than 5 newsletter subscriptions? Yep. I think that's something. Anyway, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm also a weekender of the Times. There's On Roto. I read to keep up my fantasy baseball team. There's Hirschhorn and Twitter and Slack.
Okay. All right. So this next platform idea, next format, what are we mostly solving for? Are we solving for a lack of time? Are we making quality better? Are we difficulty in discovering, discovery platforms you were talking about? Is it maybe a way to get all your proprietary sources of content in one place, which might be Twitter? What do you think that the next solutions have to primarily focus on, or is it some combination of these?
I think that the current configuration of web content is so out of touch with what consumers really want. I think it's actually dramatically out of touch. And, you know, part of that is there's an enormous amount of money trying to reinvent old mass media in a technology that is built to be the opposite of that. And, you know, I don't blame anybody for that, and I think it's natural, but, you know, the fact that I can't tell Facebook that I've seen this story and I don't need to see it again, thank you very much, and that they'll continue to feed it to me endlessly, like, that's not hard tech. They could build that this afternoon. They've made a decision that they don't want to do that because I don't have an alternative to Facebook yet, but I thought someone earlier today was very smart to say, but they do know that there are options, and you know, I mean, I can't tell you the number of teenage friends my sons have that tell me they don't like Facebook at all, they don't use it, but they use Instagram, and don't seem to understand the irony of that statement.
I think there's this feeling at times where, you know, if I just launch an app, all will be saved. And you know, if you look at research, you know, most people, it's like 65% of people download 0 apps per month on average. You know, and I think the average number of apps is like 26 or roughly around that number. So, and I think we all, as we mentioned, we all kind of have our go-to apps. So, I think a challenge to tie it back to discovery is how do I take all this awesome content, particularly for the traditional guys, that's in 5,000 words, and how do I push that in a way that is going to engage with somebody who is on the run, Snapchatting, tweeting, checking Instagram, going to my Pinterest boards, and do that in an engaging way. The one interesting thing that I've seen that I'm very encouraged by is that there is still this need, though, for long form, or the interest to read long form. And if you can find a way to find the places where you can engage with them and give them something that's really interesting and relevant, I think people are showing they'll read it.
Yeah, well, of course I agree with that. But I think there's too much news being produced for robots or clicks rather than for people. The one thing that I was able to do this thing, you know, on Medium was build something where basically most days we do one story a day there, and hope that's a good story. My competition is, you know, the best story that, you know, we have on that Marty produces on The Verge, right? And sometimes we could match that, and some days maybe not. But it's always going to be something that we hope you can't find anywhere else on the internet. We don't want to be part of a commodity there. And one thing that helps us in the long form is that, you know, like The Verge, we have a great platform that designs things for readers to get into a story more deeply, so it's not painful to follow as you read along.
What thanks, Stephen. You guys are kicking our butts some days too. So I'm really excited about a few things. One is the increased sources that we can distribute to for all manner of audiences, whether it's, you know, Snapchat, Twitter, other, you know, video services. So I think the multitude of places where our content can go is extremely exciting for us, and the need to develop competency to adequately and properly program to those audiences is also a thing that we're really focused on. How do you best program to Snapchat? How do you best program to Facebook, those audiences, YouTube, you name it. But increasingly for us as a media company, the ability to do that and to be in all of those key places is something very core to our ongoing growth and success. That's one, just all the places that we can reach those people. And then two, on the video side, we're extremely excited about the digitization of video overall, and the increased consumption, but the opportunity in the over-the-top world for producing great video content, kind of the equalization of video production no longer has to be by the huge conglomerate broadcast companies, but can be done by so many of us that are now getting into this field in a very, very large way. So I think the democratization and increased distribution of video over digital is going to be, for us, I think, one of the big trends of the next few years.
So is that how we're going to make up the lost, when traditional media tried to go digital, as your colleague Jim Bankoff just said in your, was it your New Fronts or something?
New Fronts last week.
Yeah. Well, do you want to recount what he said, that there are the 3 stages and now we're in this 3rd phase?
Yeah, it's, we kind of look at the development of media on the internet as phase 1 was kind of traditional companies essentially porting their magazines and newspapers into websites, which was kind of the first basic web that we had, and that those were traditional brands that were dominating in those days. And then stage 2, which is what we've kind of evolved from now, was the generation of companies and media brands that produced lots and lots of cheap content with lots and lots of not necessarily professional writers, and that garnered lots and lots of audience of uneven quality, and the advertising that went with that was also very low cost and low value, which led to this kind of spiral downward of cheap content, not great audience experiences, not great advertising, which led to even more of that. And so the phase that we're in now, we believe, can actually lead to a race to the top, which is finally the web, whether it's the ubiquity of broadband and social distribution of good content, and no longer the gaming of Google algorithms to reach your audience, can lead to great content, great experiences, aggregating great audiences, which finally have produced experiences that brands can really get behind, allowing them to connect in very, very elegant and powerful ways to those audiences, which leads to a nice spiral of better advertising, better content, better experiences, bigger audiences, and so forth. So I think we really are in a place now where the web in digital works for brands, it works for building great consumer brands, and it works for advertising brands that want to reach those audiences in the ways that they're accustomed to, and in ways that they have every right to expect.
I do want to speak up actually for the audience itself participating. One of the things that drew me to Medium is that it is an open platform. And one thing that I've done in building Backchannel, I think we're going to do even more of this, and is to identify and include content that people just put up on Medium, and can develop conversations at the same high quality of our paid contributors. So one of our most popular stories ever was something that a 19-year-old college student put up on Medium, thinking 3 or 4 of his friends might read it, and we found it on Medium, and it was just starting to take off, and we put it up, and he got 7-figure views, and he became an internet celebrity now, and does speaking tours. His life got changed when he posted to Medium, and so we sort of want to fuzz the boundary a little of who is a professional and who is just someone with something great to share.
That sounds good to me. The one thing that I wonder about, though, is who's going to pay for, Medium doesn't have advertising now, right?
Well, actually, no, we do have, there's been some sponsored publications.
Okay.
We're, in the next couple months, you're going to start to see some of that on Backchannel. So things are happening, in terms of this. I think, at first some of the forms that you're familiar with, and then I think down the road, I'd hope to see new kinds of monetization ideas that are unique to us, that help fund us.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's where I was going with that, because it seems that, when the traditional media companies tried this, it was print dollars to digital dimes to then mobile pennies. So is videos advertising Is it just going to go like TV-style budgets onto the web and hooray, we're all saved, or what's going to happen?
That's exactly right. We're all
Okay, good.
So I actually think there's two clouds on the horizon that are worth talking about. The first is I think it's time to retire the word mobile.
I was just going to ask.
Because it doesn't mean anything.
I have a question
in a minute. I think of when you think about the number of people we all know that have a computer in front of them or a flat screen in their living room and are on their phone, including everyone in my family, there's a reason for that. And that's because you're willing to tell that device where you are and who you are. You're not willing to tell your computer that. Now, maybe someone will cookie you in a certain way. Maybe they'll try and figure out who you are and where you are. But you're willing to actually tell your device where you are. And I think the last thing that you'll begin to tell that device soon is what you want, like who you are at that moment. And that, I think, changes everything. But before we get too optimistic, we've got to pay attention to ad blockers. Because the number of people that are installing ad blockers, the numbers are staggering. And these are not, kids that think that they're being secret pirates, and as soon as they grow up and graduate from college, they're going to actually start looking at ads again. They're saying, I don't like the way you're getting in the way of my content. I'm voting with an app. I've found it. I've installed it. And the ad blockers are, we now have customers saying to us on our enterprise platform, so we have people complaining because our videos aren't playing on our sites, and when we look, we find it's because they've installed malware on their computer that breaks the player. Can you fix it? Fix it so they can watch the video without the ad. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can fix it, but is that really what? So this, to me, the ad blockers are a symptom of a larger message that's being told to us as both publishers and makers, which is we don't want to be sold that way. Find a better way. And those numbers are really scary.
We see that on Pinterest, right? So one of the nice things about our platform is every promoted pin, that's our ad vehicle, is an organic pin. And what we have found is that the pins that perform the best are always the ones that there's really no advertising or no feel of advertising. It's a message that's relevant. So it's using whatever insights, data you have to try to drive relevancy without obviously violating any crossing the line on privacy. That's where I know we're spending a lot of time. You see other companies starting to really spend time because I do think it's going to get more and more challenging. The old models don't seem to ever fit when you try to do them digitally. Happened with print. I think to your question, it will happen again if TV tries to do that same thing. It has to be different. And to me, the focus group I always look at are my kids. Like you just watch them use, and it's just so different than how we've consumed media. And it's the onus is on everyone here to figure out how to create relevant, compelling messages that fit in a business monetization model that helps you continue to grow as a company.
To that point, yesterday, Steve, I know you heard this too, the Elite Daily speaker and also the Refinery 29 speaker both said, anyone remember the number? It was 80% of the millennials are mobile.
Yeah. 80%.
80%. And the other little odd thing, since we're talking about formats, the Elite Daily guy said the tablet traffic for their audience, do you remember what that was? 5%. So does mobile mean phones now? I mean, what do we think about tablets?
You got to stop joking about phablets now. You got to stop using that word as the butt of a joke, because the truth is, bigger phones that feel more like computers are likely to be the consumption medium of this next chapter. By the way, there is one alternative to advertising, and we should throw it into the mix here. There's really interesting early experiments going on in SVOD, and subscription video on demand.
Thank you.
Acronym.
Just checking.
Which says, I really like Medium, and Medium's making great videos, and I actually am happy to pay them $3 a month because that relationship feels more genuine to me, and I'd rather actually support small, high-quality verticals with a credit card swipe or some kind of a micropayment. And there is some vision of the future that says people pay for quality. And that may seem wildly optimistic.
Well, you say that too, right, Marty?
People do pay for quality, and brands also pay to be around quality and quality audiences. we see the migration to mobile happening as well. 50% or more of our audiences are consuming from mobile devices. We certainly don't see that as a scary thing or something to be concerning, because I think the approach that we take is build experiences and build advertising that is right for whatever device or whatever environment you're in. Build it so that it feels native. That's native content. That's native. We call it native display advertising. But make it high quality. Make it beautiful. Make it substantive and match the level of substance and quality that the rest of the experience is all about. And we've found that we can address these questions around things like ad blockers, because if the experience is overall good, audiences are willing to and actually eager to consume them.
Yeah, but the ad blocker is on the platform. It's not on your site. They put it on their computer or their phone. So they don't get to say, oh, we're taking the ad blocker off for you.
That's right. But audiences, I think, that begin to be accustomed to higher quality experiences are going to be less likely to do that. And I think that's something that we can all impact by treating advertising as not something to get in the way, but as something to actually add value to the experience if done right.
And Cyndi, just to amplify the mobile, Pinterest is now 80% of our traffic is coming through mobile, and mostly on smartphone. And that's 70 million plus people monthly. So it's growing. And to Marty's point about the creative, I think the shift is when you look at Pinterest and the other distribution platforms are out there, it's really trying to Marty's point, to figure out how are people engaging and using that platform. So something that we talk a lot about is, we sometimes get put into the social bucket. Oh, it's Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and we actually that's flattering in some ways, but it's actually not really accurate, right? Our platform to us is about visual search. It's about discovery. It's finding those interests and doing it in a way and using images and descriptions. One of the most amazing things we've seen is that descriptions are very, very important to drive engagement. Like, so where some people will say, oh, Pinterest will just have these images. Actually, the people that engage the most are the ones that are the pins that are helpful, that are giving you something that's helpful in that moment.
Mm-hmm. So what are the most interesting experiments out there now? Again, not that you guys are working on. What are you keeping an eye on? And, so we know newsletters are good. Some apps have worked, Circa, a few others not so much. What are you saying, gee, I hope that works?
I'm fascinated with Snapchat's experiments and ongoing kind of discovery around around great content in their platform. The discovery service that brings in a limited number of brands that they can promote. There's something very interesting happening there, which is very retro. It's their ability to promote certain content that then gets mass audience consuming that content at the same time, which is almost going back to kind of a broadcast model. Mm-hmm. And it's the first place that I've seen that has enough scale and can and has a desire to promote really good stuff to that audience that can create that kind of new model of broadcast. And I think what they're doing is really fascinating, and I think holds great promise for interest in great brands and for publishers alike.
I'm just fascinated by the what goes on behind the scenes, the people who do the Facebook newsfeed. Mm-hmm. Uneasy is the head that wears the crown. I mean, that they have to balance that all this media is being filtered through them, but are people seeing content from their friends? So they swing from one direction to another, and then they think, well, maybe we should do something to make sure that the things that just go viral on our network aren't phony things, and they have to check, almost like vet things and kind of do that algorithmically. So I try to spend a lot of time with those people because they're trying to grapple with these problems their little tweaks of the algorithm become huge because they affect so many people every time they make a change in one direction or the other.
So what happens when that data, you were saying that they're keeping an eye on the next, what happens? When does Facebook crumble, and what happens with it? Is it your niche network thing?
Well, I mean, I think all of us in different ways, are juggling. Do we want to be mass medium, or do we want to be media? Or do we want to be focused? And the thing that's interesting, I hear you talk about Facebook, is it would, for them to turn that news feed into 4 news feeds would be so dramatically, like, here's your family news feed, here's what's happening in the world in politics, here's entertainment, and here's like.
Well, when you looked at Twitter, no one did the swipe to go from the main timeline to Discover. They tried so hard to get us to move, to make that swipe and look at Discover as well as the main timeline. But people didn't do it.
No, it's true. It's true. In terms of something that I'm watching, like, I'm really interested in the Vice HBO Now relationship, because I think for everybody in the video space, if they build a daily destination click, it becomes a very different business, and it changes what Amazon Prime needs to do. It changes what Netflix needs to do. I mean, if everyone else is putting things up incrementally, and HBO starts to build a drumbeat of daily, that's going to really change very quickly how people invest in content.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking what Stephen was saying about Facebook and the feed. It's interesting. I think we talked to a lot of media companies about discovery and so forth, but there's been also, I'm starting to see the shift from the vanity of likes and followers, which have a certain value in our world, but particularly for us. We'll have a lot of conversations where a brand or a media company will say, hey, my #1 goal is to really increase my followers on your platform. And we always ask why. Why is that important? They're like, well, it's followers. That's the gold standard. And we say, actually, we believe engagement is. And so how do we help you think about that and drive engagement opposed to this idea of followers, so that you're not just in this feed scenario, but again, you're really engaging with an audience that is either currently into your content or in the future. And that's, again, something that we tend to see is what are those behaviors of what I want to do next, that we try to put the brands in front of those people.
Do you see any likely model that is coming down the pike for those, other than making someone who writes a great post on Medium famous, who can then get speaking engagements? Or, I mean, there is so much great content on Pinterest that just regular old folks do. And, you've always aggregated video from whoever makes it. There are 3 recent experiments I've heard of, at least, that, Google Contributor. There is now this matched content thing that Google is trying. If you search, you can, have a piece of your content presented with it. And then last week, MIT announced something called Tipsy, which sounds to me just like an old tip jar. I mean, do you see any interesting development work in that regard for getting the people who are actually the little people, the non-big media company journos, getting them paid?
Well, I mean, that's part of our roadmap there, because we're this open platform. That the publications that are on Medium really are something that sort of feeds into that larger mission, is to have everyone share ideas and things like that. So engagement is like a huge discussion at Medium there, because the value of what we want you to get from something on Medium, whether it's in a professional content or the vast, a much huger amount of stories that come from users, who are just posting and sharing, is value for your mind and your life, So, if you engage with it by recommending it or follow people, get people to follow you. We have a thing where you could highlight things and immediately tweet it and see what other people have highlighted, and that's getting to be really popular. So, to engage with things in a meaningful way, and which helps identify those stories for other people, is our kind of virtuous cycle that we're working on.
Well, I can't wait to see that.
I'm going to say something controversial, and I'm biting my tongue because I'm going to get in trouble for it. But
do.
I actually don't think money matters. And I actually think it probably matters in the opposite direction. So when we were doing MTV Unfiltered, which is now a long time ago, we found that when we
When
paid
you
people.
coined the term UGC, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I was 12. We found that as we paid people, they got worse because they were doing it for love, and they were doing it because they were passionate about skateboarding or whatever their thing was, and all of a sudden it became work. And they're like, oh, now it's just home. And for mostly those teenagers, it was homework. So the money had kind of this upside-down relationship. And we met with a bunch of our curators in October, and there was something with the platform we were trying to fix, and we brought a bunch of them together, and we said, what can we do better? And they said, we're not really getting enough love. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Hadn't really thought of that as a fungible method of payment. And what they meant was they wanted more warmth, they wanted more conversation, they wanted more, and it wasn't fame, because it wasn't, they didn't want to be outside their little world. They just wanted other people that were passionate about the thing that they were passionate in to say, good job. And they weren't doing this as a living, and they didn't want to quit their day job to do this as a living. And so I think that for a lot of the people that make this kind of hybrid content that's now filling our lives, like the reason the really good stuff pops out is because they're doing it because they love it. You know, and yes, some of them will turn into professionals and then will make a career at it and write a book and go off and get a speaking engagement. But for lots of them, it's the half hour at the end of the day that makes them feel really good about mountain climbing or backpacking or, you know, body image issues or whatever they are. So money might not help.
Okay, well,
we find something very similar in
we're
our sports
out,
blogs as well.
Yeah, sports fans,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that's great. We ending on doing it for love is perfect. Yeah, right? And we are out of time. So thank you very much,
Thank you.
gentlemen. So I'm not sure who's coming up here next. Is it lunch, maybe?
I think maybe
Yeah.
that is.
We see that.